Imagine a woman standing alone in a vast, quiet space. She is not lonely, she is unshaken. Her gaze is calm, her posture steady. Around her, the world rages with expectations, pressures, and unsolicited judgments, but she remains rooted in herself. This is the power of choosing solitude consciously. It is not retreating in fear, nor closing off from life. It is embracing the clarity that comes from being fully present with oneself. Women who learn this skill resist the corrosive effects of external chaos without sacrificing warmth or openness to meaningful connection. In a society that constantly demands performance, approval, and visibility, the ability to stand alone can feel counterintuitive. Yet solitude is a tool for self-mastery. It allows women to process emotions, reflect on their experiences, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Like Medusa, once vilified, now reimagined as a symbol of resilience, choosing solitude strategically is not weakness. It is armor forged through awareness and courage. Solitude becomes a space for internal negotiation where values are clarified, boundaries solidified, and intentions sharpened. The danger lies in confusing solitude with isolation. Isolation breeds bitterness, resentment, and withdrawal from life. True strength comes from the conscious decision to separate from what harms your psyche while remaining fully engaged with what nurtures it. Medusa teaches that standing alone does not mean becoming hard or untouchable. It means cultivating a presence so grounded that external judgments bounce off without penetration, leaving space for authentic interaction on your own terms. Women navigating anxiety, social pressure, or intense emotions often feel pulled between adaptation and self-preservation. Choosing solitude with purpose offers a third path: engagement without compromise, reflection without suppression, and protection without emotional closure. In this practice, one discovers the paradoxical freedom of being fiercely independent while maintaining the capacity for deep connection. It is the alchemy of emotional resilience, turning the raw material of solitude into a force of empowerment rather than alienation. If you are ready to claim your space, your time, and your emotional sovereignty, the Medusa archetype offers guidance. Embrace solitude as strength, not a fortress against life. Stand firm, refine your emotional perception, and cultivate the courage to be unapologetically yourself. Through conscious solitude, you build resilience that transforms suffering into clarity, pressure into power, and isolation into intentional self-mastery. In a world that constantly pushes you to perform, conform, and be seen, choosing solitude can feel radical. Yet, solitude is not a withdrawal from life, it is a conscious strategy to reclaim your power, your clarity, and your emotional sovereignty. For women navigating anxiety, social pressure, or intense emotions, the ability to stand alone with composure is not just a skill. It is an act of liberation. Like Medusa, who once faced injustice and emerged as a symbol of resilience, you too can transform moments of solitude into strength rather than isolation. Solitude allows space for reflection, for understanding the depths of your own mind, and for responding to challenges with intentionality rather than reaction. It is in these moments alone that you refine your perception, notice subtle emotional patterns, and cultivate the firm inner boundaries that protect your peace. This practice does not mean shutting out the world, it means engaging on your terms, choosing when and how to connect, and refusing to let external chaos dictate your internal state. By embracing solitude as a tool rather than a punishment, you learn to navigate suffering without bitterness, to resist pressures without hardening your heart, and to maintain authenticity in every interaction. You discover that strength is not measured by how much you can endure in the presence of others, but by how fully you can remain grounded in yourself when alone. If this message resonates with you, take a moment now to engage. Like this content to affirm your commitment to inner strength. Comment below to share where you are watching from, your city and country, and subscribe to continue this journey of self-mastery. Every small action reinforces the practice of conscious solitude and the cultivation of your Medusa-like resilience. Let us walk this path together, turning moments alone into a foundation of unwavering power. Solitude is often misunderstood. Many equate being alone with loneliness or weakness, yet the truth is far from it. For women navigating anxiety, social pressures, and intense emotions, solitude can be a deliberate act of empowerment. Choosing to be alone does not mean you are fleeing from life. It means you are creating a space where you can process experiences, refine your emotional responses, and strengthen your inner resolve. Like Medusa, who endured betrayal and transformation, women can learn to transform their solitude into a sanctuary of clarity and strength. Embracing solitude begins with awareness. It requires recognizing the moments when the external world threatens your balance and choosing to step back intentionally. In practice, this could be setting aside quiet time daily for reflection, journaling, or mindful observation of your emotions. By regularly engaging in these small acts, you develop a capacity to respond thoughtfully to challenges rather than react impulsively. The key is not isolation but intentionality. Solitude as a conscious tool for emotional mastery. A critical component of this practice is distinguishing between solitude and social withdrawal. Solitude empowers, isolation diminishes. When women withdraw out of fear, resentment, or avoidance, bitterness can take root. True solitude, however, preserves connection on your own terms. It allows you to engage with the world from a place of centeredness, where interactions are chosen rather than defaulted and boundaries are clear and respected. Medusa's gaze, once feared, becomes symbolic of this clarity, a presence that commands attention without compromise. Emotional resilience is nurtured in solitude. Without constant distraction, women have the opportunity to examine their triggers, identify patterns in their emotional responses, and cultivate strategies to manage anxiety and pressure. For example, when feeling overwhelmed by social expectations, consciously removing yourself from the situation to breathe, reflect, and reset creates space for grounded decision-making. This practice transforms solitude into a mechanism for self-preservation without surrendering openness or warmth. Reflection in solitude also cultivates authenticity. When disconnected from the noise of external approval, women confront their true values and priorities. This introspection encourages alignment between actions and beliefs, fostering confidence that does not depend on validation from others. Medusa's transformation teaches that surviving adversity requires authenticity. Only by embracing your truth, even in solitude, can you stand resilient against external forces. Solitude is not a permanent retreat but a recurring practice. By integrating intentional alone time into daily life, women can maintain emotional equilibrium and prevent burnout. Practical strategies include scheduling brief periods for mindfulness, turning off digital distractions, or taking walks in nature to observe without judgment. These small rituals reinforce the habit of using solitude to restore focus and calm, allowing women to approach social and professional demands with strength and composure. Boundaries are central to the empowerment found in solitude. Women often face pressures to overextend emotionally, accommodating others at the expense of their well-being. Practicing solitude creates the space necessary to assert limits firmly, yet compassionately. This does not close you off from meaningful connections. Instead, it clarifies the terms on which engagement occurs. Medusa's archetype exemplifies this balance: protective, discerning, and unyielding when necessary, yet fully capable of connection when conditions are healthy. Solitude also enhances strategic thinking. Distance from immediate pressures allows women to see challenges more objectively, evaluate options without emotional clouding, and anticipate consequences before reacting. In moments of stress, the ability to step back and observe one's internal state before acting is invaluable. Like Medusa, whose gaze could paralyze, cultivating this internal focus sharpens perception, allowing for deliberate and empowered responses rather than reactive behaviors. Importantly, solitude fosters a sense of self-reliance. Emotional independence does not mean rejecting support but cultivating the ability to stand grounded in your own strength, even when external validation is absent. This independence becomes the foundation for resilience, a well-honed inner fortitude that prevents external chaos from dictating your emotional state. Women who practice intentional solitude learn that true strength is internal, not contingent on circumstance. Finally, embracing solitude is a radical affirmation of self-worth. It is a declaration that your mental and emotional health is a priority, that your presence is valuable, and that you can thrive without constant external affirmation. By integrating this practice, women can navigate suffering, social pressures, and intense emotions without becoming bitter or closed off. Like Medusa, who embodies both vulnerability and power, solitude becomes a dynamic tool for transformation, a path to emotional sovereignty, clarity, and unwavering inner strength. Life places constant demands on women. Social expectations, career pressures, family responsibilities, and internal anxieties can feel relentless, sometimes overwhelming. The challenge is not to eliminate these pressures, they are inherent to modern life, but to develop the inner strength to navigate them without losing composure. Medusa, as an archetype, exemplifies this balance. She embodies power without bitterness, resilience without detachment. Women can learn from this archetype how to resist suffering without closing off or becoming hardened by the world around them. Emotional pressure often triggers impulsive reactions. Anger, anxiety, or fear can escalate if unchecked, creating cycles of self-doubt or resentment. The first step toward mastery is awareness. Recognizing the early signs of emotional escalation allows women to respond rather than react. Simple practices such as mindful breathing, journaling, or stepping away from stressful interactions create space to process emotions. Solitude, when used intentionally, becomes a laboratory for self-regulation, a safe environment in which responses can be examined and refined. The philosophy of Stoicism provides a framework for navigating pressure with clarity. Marcus Aurelius advised focusing on what is within one's control and letting go of what is not. For women, this principle translates to prioritizing personal agency. Emotions can be acknowledged without being dictated by external circumstances. Medusa's gaze becomes symbolic of this approach. She sees clearly, discerns threats without panic, and acts in alignment with her values rather than reacting impulsively to every provocation. Boundaries are essential under pressure. Women frequently face expectations to accommodate others, sometimes at the cost of their emotional equilibrium. Learning to say no, limiting exposure to toxic influences, and setting clear personal standards are practical steps to maintain balance. These boundaries are not walls. They are filters that protect energy while allowing meaningful connections to flourish. Medusa's archetype demonstrates this principle. Her presence commands respect, and she engages selectively, fully aware of the cost of overextension. Resilience grows from repeated practice. When women face daily pressures, tight deadlines, critical feedback, social scrutiny, each encounter is an opportunity to strengthen emotional fortitude. By pausing, reflecting, and choosing a deliberate response, they cultivate an inner calm that persists even under adversity. Over time, These small victories build a cumulative strength that prevents bitterness and preserves openness to life's experiences. It is also vital to reframe suffering as information, not punishment. Emotional discomfort signals unmet needs, misaligned values, or unresolved trauma. By interpreting these signals thoughtfully, women can identify areas for growth rather than internalizing negativity. Medusa's story illustrates this alchemy. Through adversity, she gains clarity, power, and autonomy. Similarly, emotional pressure can become a teacher, guiding women toward self-awareness and greater mastery over their inner states. Connection and solitude are not mutually exclusive. Engaging meaningfully with supportive individuals while reserving intentional alone time allows women to process experiences without being overwhelmed. Sharing insights, discussing strategies, or simply receiving validation reinforces resilience. Yet, solitude ensures that connection remains deliberate and centered rather than reactionary, preventing emotional dependence or the erosion of boundaries. Practical daily routines reinforce this mindset. Women can allocate specific periods for reflection, meditation, or mindful activity, creating predictable spaces for emotional recalibration. Stoic journaling, recording challenges, examining reactions, and evaluating alternative responses strengthen self-awareness. Even brief moments of solitude can cultivate the habit of measured emotional response, empowering women to act with clarity under pressure. Self-compassion is critical. Maintaining composure under emotional strain does not require suppression of feelings. Acknowledging anxiety, frustration, or grief without judgment enables women to process emotions constructively. Medusa's archetype reminds us that power does not mean the absence of vulnerability. It means integrating vulnerability with discernment, transforming challenges into growth without surrendering emotional authenticity. Ultimately, mastering pressure without bitterness is an ongoing practice of presence, reflection, and boundary setting. By embracing solitude as a tool, applying Stoic principles, and drawing inspiration from Medusa's resilience, women can navigate life's pressures with strength, clarity, and openness. Emotional sovereignty becomes not an abstract ideal but a lived reality, a daily commitment to respond intentionally, protect one's well-being, and engage with the world on empowered terms. Women often face a delicate balance, expressing their emotions authentically while avoiding being overwhelmed or defined by them. Anxiety, social pressure, and emotional intensity can create internal tension, prompting some to suppress feelings or adopt facades to appease others. Medusa, as a psychological archetype, exemplifies the integration of emotional authenticity with resilience. Her story teaches that power lies not in repressing emotions, but in observing, understanding, and responding with intentionality. Authenticity begins with self-awareness. Women must recognize the emotional currents running through them, whether it is anger, sadness, or fear. Solitude serves as a mirror, reflecting internal states without distortion from external opinions. By examining emotions calmly and objectively, women can distinguish between transient reactions and deeper values. This reflection fosters emotional clarity and prevents intense feelings from dictating behavior or undermining personal integrity. Stoicism reinforces this approach. The practice of observing emotions without immediate reaction allows women to engage reason as their guiding principle. Emotions are neither denied nor exaggerated. They are acknowledged as signals and processed constructively. Medusa's gaze symbolizes this capacity, a discerning awareness that sees both threat and opportunity, maintaining composure while integrating powerful emotional energy into deliberate action. Boundaries are critical in maintaining authenticity. Social environments often impose expectations that conflict with personal values, pressuring women to act in ways that dilute their integrity. Choosing solitude strategically provides space to evaluate these demands. By stepping back, women can respond selectively, honoring their values without compromising relationships or responsibilities. Solitude becomes a tool for discernment rather than withdrawal, ensuring that engagement is deliberate and aligned. Managing intense emotions also requires emotional regulation techniques. Mindful breathing, reflective journaling, and cognitive reframing are practical tools that create a buffer between impulse and action. For example, when confronted with criticism, a pause for reflection prevents defensive or reactive behavior. Medusa's archetype illustrates the power of controlled focus. Strength arises not from reaction, but from measured, deliberate presence. Resilience develops through repeated practice of these strategies. Each emotionally charged moment presents an opportunity to exercise intentionality and preserve authenticity. Women who practice reflection in solitude reinforce their capacity to remain grounded amidst turbulence. Over time, the habit of integrating emotional experience with conscious choice creates an unshakable foundation of self-trust. Social support remains essential. Emotional authenticity does not imply isolation from empathetic connections. Sharing insights, discussing challenges, or seeking mentorship can validate experiences and provide constructive perspectives. However, the ability to engage authentically depends on first cultivating inner clarity. Medusa's story emphasizes selective engagement. Presence is powerful when grounded, intentional, and self-aware. Self-compassion underpins all these practices. Recognizing that emotions are natural and that struggles do not signify weakness enables women to process experiences without judgment. Solitude allows space for compassionate reflection, reinforcing a balanced perspective that integrates feelings without surrendering control. Emotional intensity becomes an ally rather than an adversary, a source of insight rather than disruption. Practical routines can embed authenticity into daily life. Setting aside time for introspection, engaging in mindful practices, and creating personal rituals reinforce self-awareness. Women can journal about challenges, explore emotional triggers, and outline intentional responses. These exercises cultivate a strong connection to internal values and enhance the ability to navigate intense emotions without compromise. Ultimately, maintaining authenticity while managing strong emotions is a disciplined practice of observation, reflection, and conscious action. By embracing solitude, applying Stoic principles, and embodying Medusa's archetypal strength, women can navigate the complexities of emotional intensity with clarity, resilience, and integrity. Emotional sovereignty becomes a lived experience, enabling women to honor their feelings while remaining firmly grounded in self-defined values and empowered engagement. Navigating the modern world requires a delicate equilibrium, protecting oneself from emotional harm while remaining open to meaningful connection. Women frequently confront pressures that challenge this balance, from societal expectations to interpersonal conflicts. Medusa, as an archetype, embodies this duality. Her story illustrates the construction of emotional armor that shields without isolating, strength that preserves rather than alienates. This chapter explores practical ways to cultivate this resilience. Emotional armor begins with awareness of vulnerabilities. Women must first understand what triggers anxiety, frustration, or resentment. Solitude provides the space to examine these triggers without judgment. Reflection allows insight into emotional patterns, revealing where boundaries are needed and where tolerance can be expanded. Medusa's archetype symbolizes this clarity. She is fiercely protective of her space and energy, discerning threats with precision while remaining open to what aligns with her integrity. The philosophy of Stoicism reinforces this approach. Recognizing what is within control and what is not allows women to allocate emotional energy wisely. Some external pressures are unavoidable, but how one interprets and responds to them is entirely within personal control. Emotional armor, then, is not a hard shell that blocks life. It is a flexible, responsive layer that allows women to absorb challenges without damage and maintain intentional engagement. Boundaries are a tangible manifestation of emotional armor. Women often overextend themselves to meet external demands, eroding resilience over time. Setting limits is not an act of selfishness, it is a strategic investment in sustained well-being. Whether in relationships, work, or social environments, clear boundaries create predictability and safety, reducing the likelihood of reactive or emotionally draining interactions. Medusa's gaze, both protective and discerning, models this principle. Solitude serves as both a laboratory and a sanctuary for building this armor. In quiet reflection, women can practice emotional regulation, identify triggers, and rehearse responses to challenging situations. Daily routines such as meditation, journaling, or mindful observation strengthen the mind's capacity to respond with calm and composure. This intentional practice transforms solitude into a tool for fortifying emotional resilience without hardening the heart. Openness is maintained through selective engagement. Emotional armor does not require rejecting connection. It requires choosing interactions wisely. Women who discern which relationships and environments nurture growth versus those that deplete energy can maintain meaningful bonds while protecting their equilibrium. Medusa's archetype demonstrates this balance. Her presence is commanding, yet she engages with discernment, creating space for authentic interaction without compromise. Resilience is reinforced through repeated practice. Each emotionally challenging encounter is an opportunity to test and refine boundaries, strengthen composure, and preserve openness. By consciously reflecting on experiences and adjusting strategies, women develop a robust capacity to withstand adversity. Emotional armor becomes not a barrier to life, but a framework for navigating it with intentionality and confidence. Self-compassion remains central. Women must acknowledge that even with strong boundaries and deliberate solitude, emotional challenges will arise. Treating oneself with patience and kindness during setbacks strengthens endurance and prevents bitterness. Medusa's story reminds us that strength includes the ability to integrate vulnerability and power, allowing women to face life's pressures without losing authenticity. Practical tools reinforce emotional armor in daily life. Techniques such as deep breathing, cognitive reframing, and structured reflection provide concrete methods to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively. Journaling allows women to track emotional responses, evaluate patterns, and refine strategies. Over time, these small but consistent practices fortify inner resilience and empower intentional engagement with the world. Ultimately, building emotional armor without losing openness is a disciplined integration of self-awareness, reflection, and strategic action. By embracing solitude, applying Stoic principles, and embodying Medusa's archetypal strength, women can protect their emotional well-being while remaining receptive, compassionate, and engaged. Strength becomes an intentional, lived practice, allowing women to navigate life with clarity, balance, and empowered authenticity. Inner strength is not the absence of vulnerability, it is the capacity to endure life's challenges without losing one's sense of self or shutting down emotionally. Women often face the dual pressures of external demands and internal expectations, which can lead to either reactive behavior or emotional withdrawal. Medusa, reinterpreted as an archetype of resilience, exemplifies the integration of strength and openness, teaching that it is possible to withstand suffering without becoming bitter or closed off. The cultivation of inner strength begins with deliberate self-reflection. Women can use solitude to examine emotional responses, identify triggers, and understand patterns in behavior. By observing emotions without judgment, one learns to distinguish between transient impulses and deeper values. Medusa's story illustrates the power of this clarity. Her gaze represents perception grounded in awareness, discerning threats while maintaining the capacity for intentional action. Stoicism offers practical tools to reinforce this inner fortitude. Accepting that external circumstances are largely beyond control allows women to focus on their own responses. Emotional regulation, cognitive reframing, and mindful detachment from unnecessary drama are strategies that transform challenges into opportunities for growth. Like Medusa, whose presence commands respect without aggression, women can cultivate authority over their internal world, choosing response over reaction. Boundaries are essential to preserving inner strength. Women are frequently asked to overextend emotionally, sacrificing their own needs for others. Establishing limits is not selfish. It is a strategic act of self-care. Clear boundaries create space to process emotions, sustain energy, and engage with the world on one's own terms. Medusa exemplifies the protective balance between defense and engagement. Her armor is firm, yet she remains responsive when conditions align with her values. Resilience is reinforced through intentional practice. Regular moments of solitude allow women to integrate lessons from past experiences, rehearse mindful responses to potential stressors, and cultivate composure. Activities such as journaling, meditation, or reflective walking can serve as structured opportunities to reinforce emotional endurance. Each repeated exercise strengthens the capacity to withstand adversity without hardening the heart. Openness remains a critical aspect of emotional strength. Women who cultivate inner fortitude without remaining receptive risk isolation. Authentic engagement requires discernment, choosing relationships, collaborations, and interactions that support growth and alignment with personal values. Medusa's archetype demonstrates selective openness. She interacts deliberately, preserving energy while fostering meaningful connection. Self-compassion is integral to this practice. Strength is not measured by perfection or unbroken control, but by the ability to navigate setbacks with patience and grace. Acknowledging emotions, forgiving mistakes, and recognizing the effort involved in sustained resilience reinforces emotional sovereignty. Women learn that vulnerability, when integrated with discernment, enhances rather than diminishes strength. Practical strategies embed these principles in daily life. Structured reflection, intentional alone time, and mindful emotional tracking provide opportunities to process challenges, evaluate responses, and refine personal strategies. Over time, these practices fortify inner strength while preserving the capacity for authentic engagement. Medusa's archetype exemplifies this balance, showing that power arises from clarity, not coercion, and from presence, not avoidance. Emotional sovereignty allows women to navigate suffering, social pressures, and intense experiences without bitterness. By cultivating self-awareness, applying Stoic principles, and using solitude as a tool for reflection, women transform challenges into opportunities for growth. Medusa's example teaches that it is possible to be unyielding in principle while remaining open in practice, preserving authenticity, compassion, and inner power simultaneously. Ultimately, cultivating inner strength while remaining open is a lifelong practice of awareness, reflection, and intentional engagement. Women who integrate these strategies develop resilience that withstands adversity, clarity that guides decision-making, and openness that sustains meaningful connection. By embodying Medusa's archetypal lessons, emotional sovereignty becomes not only attainable but sustainable, a foundation for navigating life with unwavering strength, authenticity, and empowered presence. Embracing solitude as a tool for strength is not a withdrawal from life, it is a conscious choice to honor your inner world, protect your boundaries, and cultivate emotional resilience. Women who practice intentional solitude gain clarity, sharpen self-awareness, and learn to respond to challenges with intentionality rather than reaction. Like Medusa, the archetype of resilience, this practice transforms adversity into insight, suffering into self-mastery, and pressure into empowerment. Inner strength is built through reflection, disciplined emotional regulation, and selective engagement. Boundaries, self-compassion, and deliberate alone time allow women to navigate life without becoming bitter or emotionally closed off. Solitude becomes both a sanctuary and a laboratory for growth, fostering authenticity and reinforcing the courage to engage with the world on one's own terms. By integrating Stoic principles with psychological awareness, women transform solitude into a practice of conscious empowerment. Ultimately, embracing solitude strengthens the capacity to remain open, compassionate, and authentic while maintaining unwavering emotional sovereignty. Medusa's archetype reminds us that resilience is not about detachment, but about discernment, not about suppression, but about mastery. Women who embody this balance navigate life with clarity, integrity, and power, turning every moment alone into an opportunity for self-discovery, deliberate action, and enduring inner strength.